grind early. Where did you think you pulled away after half time?
I never felt comfortable. Thought North were, it was more than admirable. They came pretty hard, and obviously their efficiencies were too high with how many goals they were scoring from their opportunities. So, credit to our lads, they were able to stabilise. Couldn't gap them though. Until really late in the game. So, obviously they had some misfortune losing Luke. Obviously they lost their ruckman in the last quarter on top of all the injuries that they'd had before that. But it just shows you, I mean, obviously it's a big night for the North Melbourne Football Club with their history and celebrating 100 years in the comp and celebrating their 75 premiership teams 50-year reunion or 50-year anniversary. And so high emotion, and we could see that in their game. And I think like last week against Sydney, where we had a lead and then Sydney carved it up and got in front. I just loved the way that we steadied last week and remained positive and composed, and were able to come away with the points last week. And so obviously a different margin in the end tonight, but similar circumstances where they were up on the scoreboard early on a big night and a critical game for us. So both teams will come away with things that they can work on as usual. I mean, we don't usually give up. We gave up 5 goals from centre bounce. I think they only went end to end, like from our forward 50. 14% of their opportunities. So we had a really good front half turnover game. Just over 30 of those for 10 goals. It's that's a great total. It meant our pressure was okay, forced them into error, and were able to score. But the times they did get through, they virtually scored every time. And obviously the Larky threat loomed large. And I loved the fact that that Lobby was able to go there and just play it a bit differently. And then, we're reasonably stable, but there was a bit going on in the game. So on a Thursday night, I imagine once again the purists wouldn't have minded the scoring, but as coaches, we like to minimise it a little bit more.
What do you think when Ed Richards came off holding his shoulder?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be worse than what it seems to be. It seems like a minor AC joint injury, which you can always play with. So that's some good fortune for us. Yep.
Luke, the game of Tom Liberatore, 250 games, more importantly, 27 disposals, 16 contested. It was pretty much the perfect game for Libba.
Well, it was. The thing about Libba, and we've got to probably include the captain in this as well, he and Marcus, on a night when the opposition, absolutely, you play for keeps every week, but when you're playing for your bloodlines and the history of your footy club, there's a bit more emotion in it. So I just thought that those two boys, Libba and Marcus, as the figureheads, the captain and vice captain, Norts is our deputy. Sorry, our deputy vice. I thought Norts was very, very good. So our designated leaders were just outstanding, and it's not just the contested possessions and the quantities of disposals. I don't pay too much attention to the pressure point side of it, but both Marcus and Tom had enough for 2 games, each. They were just enormous, 10 tackles each. When we really needed our teammates to stand up, they just led the way. They led the charge, and Tom, that just epitomises what he's about. So I'm glad you mentioned it. If we're going to individualise. On his 250th, Tommy, he was outstanding, and the skipper on his 251st was bloody good as well.
And the turnaround in fortunes for Aaron on 5 goals. What's happened over the last few weeks for him to be able to break back into some real positive form? And has he done anything different, or have you, from a coaching perspective, given him something a little bit more so that he's enhanced his performance over the last month or so?
Oh, not necessarily. I think he gets critiqued fairly hard. I mean, it's not always about the goals kicked. I mean, one week when we played Geelong down there, he was in our best 3 players. He only kicked 3 goals, but he was outstanding. And then the next week he had a down game and he just gets chewed up. So just take it easy. It's a hard position to play. You can't shoot the lights out every week. But no doubt that he's probably taken his marks. He was probably dropping a few a bit earlier in the year. He's obviously converting reasonably well. He's having a pretty steady year for us. And on a night where maybe things weren't rolling for Sam, it was good that it was, that Norts was getting on the end of it and capitalising on some of our transitions. So he's been going pretty well, and he's worked his way through it with Matty Spanger and the forwards, and he's a difficult matchup.
You've been asked plenty of times about your record against other top 8 teams. How do you think your position heading into a big fortnight?
Yeah, well, I mean, I really, what's the word for it? We've had a pretty productive year. These teams that have beaten us, who are above us, it hasn't been by much. And if you go back and look at those games, and even the Sydney game last week with us, and Sydney, even though Sydney are below us, they brought a game style and approach to it that I think would stack up against any team in the competition. So it was a pretty important win for us last week. But early in the year, those games were going the other way. Acknowledge that these are going to be tests, big tests against very good sides. I could see Adelaide coming at the end of last year. It's no surprise to us with their personnel and their acquisitions, the experienced acquisitions that came over from other clubs at the end of last year. No surprise that they are where they are. So, and last time we played them in Adelaide, they jumped us and they took control and were a bit second rate last year against them. So a fair bit to play for every week, and we'll relish the challenge. So, but we've just got to own up to the fact that we haven't. I think we've beaten I don't even know if anyone above us we've beat. Are the Giants above us? No. So we haven't beaten anyone above us, have we? There you go. So we're in the mix, but yeah, some opportunities on the stretch to keep winning.
Do you feel like you need a scalp, or have you seen enough to justify the top 4 spot?
Scalp. We're not Navajo Indians, I don't necessarily think we need to brutalise it like. I'm joking. Trying to make light of the fact that I think what we need is. We need to keep winning to capitalise on our opportunity. Because, the difference between being one of the better sides and being in that sort of mid-tier pack is winning those close ones against the more formidable opponents. So I think if you say, do you need a scalp, I think the answer, I've gone in a long-winded way, haven't I? But the short answer to it would be, we need a scalp to finish high up on the ladder. We need scalps to finish high up on the ladder. We can't back away from that.
Did you take the opportunity to give Bailey Dale, he was obviously had someone who was going to sit on him, just to throw him around and see what worked on?
Yeah, sometimes with the role players, Pete, Bailey's a high defender, and sometimes with those defensive forward type roles, it can destabilise your whole back end, and your layers are a bit different. So putting Bailey Williams back there, who's a different back end role player, creates a different layer system. So it wasn't necessarily to put Bailey Dale in different positions, it was to stabilise our back 6 or back 7. And Truck Williams has been outstanding. We needed to send him back to the wing tonight because we lost Sam Davidson before the game. And then obviously we made an adjustment after that. And I thought Truck really helped stabilise that back end. And Bailey, Digger Dale had a different game. It was not a prolific high possession games, so the Supercoach community will be hard on me again. But in the end, I thought it worked for us, definitely behind the ball.
Riley Garcia came back in for his first game of the year. Obviously had a long-term injury at the start from pre-season, but how did you see his game? He had 2 very good games in the VFL coming back and looked like it was pretty busy, particularly in the second half tonight.
Yeah, I thought Riley and Caleb Poulter, who've just come into the team, had their moments. You know, they and enough to help the team through the middle stages of the game. So yeah, they're not prolific turnouts for them, but I thought they played their roles pretty well. And obviously Taylor Duray came into that back line. I thought Nick Caulfield took a step. Thought he had a pretty good third quarter. So some of the boys have come into the side just recently. You know, I thought they played their roles in a reasonably tight way.
Cooper Hines, one of those players who was busy early and got a lot of the ball and finished some of his work.
Yeah, he did. Like, I thought he set us up pretty well, Cooper. He had some score-assist plays, and as you said, he took a couple of marks tonight, Cooper, which was a good step for him, and it would have been nice to see him snap that goal in that last quarter. But yeah, every game that he gets under his belt's an important one for him in the club, and a game like this tonight, it'll be one he remembers because of North Melbourne's occasion.
Luke, just broadly, I know you won't comment on the incident itself, but where do you sort of sit on independent doctors for head knocks and players during games?
I think I'm comfortable with it. Is it? Yeah. I mean, is that a bit of a leading question?
With Sherry coming out late, didn't look like he was sort of that eager to get off after that knock. There'll be a lot of talk about it during the week in terms of independent doctors potentially for the health and safety of players.
Yeah.
Yeah, over club doctors on game day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I think we're all for if there's a signal where a player may not be themselves to come off and ask a question. The circumstances around Tristan, I'm not sure of, but I'm okay with it. I think our guys are really diligent and proactive with our, you know, if it seems like there's some uncertainty. So I don't know if it gets to that point. I imagine North Melbourne the same. So if that happened tonight, I wasn't aware of it. Thanks, everyone.